My parents banned me from cars after my brother nearly died in a car crash. They don't know I'm a Tokyo street legend. My parents made exactly one rule after they pulled my older brother Ethan from the wreckage of his Subaru on Highway 101. No driving, no cars, not even sitting in the driver's seat of a parked vehicle until I turned 25. They'd already sold both family cars and switched to ride shares exclusively. And they made me delete every racing video game from my console after catching me watching dashcam footage of the Wangan Expressway at 2 in the morning. Dad couldn't even watch car commercials without his hands starting to shake. The problem was that I'd inherited whatever gene made Ethan obsessed with speed. That same inexplicable need to feel an engine respond to your inputs and push a machine to its absolute limits. And now I was stuck in suburban California, taking the bus to community college, while my friends posted videos from track days and autocross events. Everything I wanted to do, everything I was apparently built for, had been locked away behind a rule born from trauma and fear. The worst part was visiting Ethan in the long-term care facility every weekend, watching him struggle through physical therapy to relearn how to walk after the crash shattered both his legs and fractured his spine in 3 places. I spent 6 months following their rule perfectly, taking buses and bumming rides and pretending I didn't care about cars anymore. But the craving never went away. It just got worse, like trying to ignore hunger by not thinking about food. I'd lie awake at night remembering the one time Ethan had let me drive his car in an empty parking lot before the crash, the way the steering wheel communicated every detail of the road surface. Everything changed when I started working part-time at a shipping company warehouse. That's where I met Kenji Nakamura, a logistics coordinator who handled shipments between California and Japan. He'd noticed me studying Japanese during my lunch breaks and asked why I was learning the language. I told him the truth, that I was obsessed with Japanese car culture. He laughed and said his nephew ran a small import shop in Shibuya that specialized in used performance parts, and if I was serious about learning, he could arrange a summer internship. My parents didn't even hesitate when I asked about spending 3 months in Tokyo working at an auto parts warehouse. They saw it as cultural education and language immersion. What they didn't know was that Kenji's nephew wasn't just running a parts shop. He was one of the most connected people in Tokyo's underground racing scene, and his shop was where street racers came to build their machines. I arrived in Tokyo in June with a suitcase full of clothes and a head full of theoretical knowledge about cars that I'd never actually applied. The shop was a narrow 3-story building wedged between a ramen restaurant and a convenience store. Kenji's nephew, a guy named Riku, took one look at me and asked in perfect English if I could actually drive or just talk about it. I admitted I'd only driven once, in a parking lot, and he laughed so hard he had to sit down. For the first 2 weeks, I just did inventory and helped customers, learning the difference between theoretical knowledge and practical understanding. The shop closed at 8 every evening, but the real work started at 9 when the street racers showed up. They'd roll in with cars that looked completely stock on the outside, but had tens of thousands of dollars in modifications hidden underneath. I watched from the shop, organizing parts and pretending I wasn't dying to be out there with them. On my 3rd Friday night, a guy named Daiki brought in a heavily modified Nissan Skyline that was misfiring during boost. I found the problem in about 10 minutes. Daiki asked if I wanted to see what his car could do once we fixed it. We replaced the coil, and I rode in the passenger seat as Daiki took the Skyline out onto the Shuto Expressway after midnight. The acceleration pressed me back into the seat with a force I'd only experienced on roller coasters. The way the car handled, the precision of the steering, the sound of the turbos spooling up, it was everything I'd imagined multiplied by 1,000. That's how I started actually working on cars instead of just reading about them. Within a month, I could rebuild a transmission and tune a fuel map, skills that usually took years to develop. The racing community started to recognize me as Riku's American apprentice, this kid who could diagnose problems faster than mechanics with decades of experience but had never actually raced. That changed on a Wednesday night in August when Riku needed someone to move a customer's car from the shop to a parking garage across town. The customer was a regular named Haru who ran a small crew of racers and had dropped off his Toyota Supra for a turbo upgrade. But when I got behind the wheel, something clicked. The Supra had enough power to break the rear wheels loose in 3rd gear. By the time I parked it at the garage, I understood something I'd never fully grasped from the passenger seat. Haru was waiting at the garage and knew immediately that I'd done more than just drive his car across town. He offered to let me come out the next night and watch his crew run some races on the Bayshore route, the infamous stretch of expressway where Tokyo's fastest racers had been testing themselves for decades. One of his crew members, a woman named Yuki, who drove a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, tossed me her keys and told me to take her car for a run. By the 3rd run, I was pushing harder, taking it up to 170 and feeling how stable it stayed at speeds that should have been terrifying. Haru asked if I wanted to try racing, actual competition against another car. Every instinct told me to say no, that this was exactly what my parents had forbidden. But standing there on the Bayshore route with the Tokyo skyline glowing in the distance, I couldn't make myself walk away. And what happened next turned me into the most wanted street racer in Tokyo.